Hey everybody, this is Derek, author and webmaster of Gematrinator.com. In this video, I'm going to cover the occultic numerology surrounding the deaths of the two most famous victims of the East Coast-West Coast hip-hop rivalry of the 90s. That would be Tupac Shakur and the notorious Big. Many people seem to understand that the record industry is corrupt and manipulative, but far too few people understand just how twisted and sick this whole operation is. Music artists are known to live fast and die young. Their average age of death is lower than the regular population, and this is often accredited to their lifestyles. While there's some truth to that, most fail to realize how big a hand the industry actually has in the deaths of its talent. By the end of this video, you will gain an understanding of not only how this gang operates, but also what their agenda is. You see, the whole hip-hop rivalry of the 90s was manufactured by the industry with a number of goals in mind. First, to sell records, and they did accomplish this. Tupac is one of the best-selling acts of all time, and Biggie is often considered to be among one of the greatest rappers ever. The second goal is to divide the public. By helping to create this gangbanger culture, they gave people a reason to be prejudiced against blacks, further increasing the racial divide. The last goal, however, is most twisted of all, and it's one many people might not be able to wrap their head around. But by the end of this video, you will understand that this is indeed the case. There are former industry executives, although unnamed due to confidentiality agreements they had to sign, that are on record saying they attended a meeting in which they were asked to buy stock in new private prison companies. It was pitched to these executives so they could use their influence to promote gangster rap, essentially turning rap from the feel-good beats of Run DMC to the gun-wielding, expletive-dropping, drug-promoting gangster rap of the 1990s. This would, in turn, then lead to a rapid growth in the prison population, meaning lots and lots more money in their own personal pocketbooks. I'll provide supporting links to this claim down in the description below. And as you can see here, since the late 80s, the prison population doubled. No doubt partially credited to the changes made to our culture. Now, whether or not Tupac and Biggie actually died will not be a topic of this video. What's important to take away from this is that the record industry knew well in advance how these men's careers would end. This industry, as well as the owners of the private prisons in this country, are part of what's known as the cabal, a cult obsessed with the practices of numerology. One component of numerology, unbeknownst to the vast majority of Americans, is gematria, often pronounced gamatria or gamatria, which is the very simple practice of coding numbers into words. All you do is assign a number to each letter in the alphabet relative to its position. A, the first letter, gets 1, B, the second letter, gets 2, all the way through Z as 26. We also have the reduction method, where each double-digit number is reduced to a single digit by adding the digits together. So J, the 10th letter, 1 plus 0 is 1. K, the 11th letter, 1 plus 1 is 2. If you were to actually pay attention to the numbers that names, places, and certain words sum to, you'll realize that there is something so far beyond coincidence going on that it should constitute proof that these systems are observed and used to script everything that comes out of the mainstream media. This is all part of the practice of Kabbalah. None of this would be provable in court, of course, because the judicial system is here to protect this cabal, but to anyone with a shred of critical thinking, it's obvious what's happening. So the first thing we're going to look at is the album that was released shortly after Tupac died. This album was called The Don Columinati, The 7-Day Theory. In the language of gematria, using the full reduction method, this sums to 151 when this 7 is added to the equation. 151 is the gematria of Jesus Christ, using the full alphabetic order. And it's not hard to see the parallels between this album image and the death of Jesus Christ. In the reduction method, Jesus Christ sums to 43. Tupac was murdered in Las Vegas, Nevada, which sums to 43, also using that same reduction method. In English ordinal, Las Vegas, Nevada sums to 133. The last album that Tupac released before he died was called All Eyes on Me. That too, using the alphabetic order, sums to 133. Now, when we're going to look at a few albums from Tupac's career, but only the ones that are the most significant. So we'll look at his debut, then the one that came out before he died, and the one that was released shortly after he died. We're also going to look at a couple of records from Biggie. Now, fortunately, he only had 2 studio albums. All we have is the one that came out in 1994, his debut album, Ready to Die, and then the one that came out shortly after he died the same month called Life After Death. There's a lot more numerology in all of these other albums. However, we're going to keep it simple here and just go with the most significant ones. Next, we'll open up reverse gematria. And essentially, this is the same 2 methods, but with the alphabetic order reversed. Here in the reverse method, we see that Z is 1, Y is 2, and X is 3, all the way through A as 26. And with reverse reduction, it's the same thing. You just take these double-digit numbers and reduce them to a single digit. So Q would be 1, P would be 2, and O as 3, as you can see reflected here in the chart. In the reverse order, ritual sacrifice sums to 107 and 251. The date that Tupac died on, 13th of September, sums to 107 and 251 using the alphabetic order. In the reverse order, this date sums to 316, and this is a very significant number to this ritual. In Hebrew gematria, Jesus Christ sums to 316. A lot of you might think of John 3:16 when you hear this number, a famous Bible verse that talks about Jesus being sent to the world to save humanity from its sins. From the release of this album to what would have been Tupac's 26th and next birthday was 31 weeks and 6 days. In fact, his debut album, Tupacalypse Now, was released on the 316th day of the year, which was November 12th, back in the year 1991. Jesus was crucified at the age of 33. The name Don, as in Don Killuminati, using the alphabetic order, Don sums to 33. This is also a number found in the reduction gematria of Masonry, and as we'll see, Masonry at its high levels is also part of the Cabal and also responsible for what we see in these rituals. The 33rd prime number is 137. When you add up all the numbers in the date that Tupac died, 9 plus 13 plus 19 plus 96, it sums to 137. And there's a lot more parallels between the death of Tupac and Jesus Christ, believe it or not. Jesus is God's son, which sums to 93, English ordinal. And think about how they say the sun is 93 million miles away. The keeper of time is the planet Saturn. Saturn sums to 93. And a lot of biblical scholars say that Jesus was crucified between the times of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. They also say that this occurred on the 93rd day of the year. The 93rd day of the year is April 3rd, written 4/3. And remember, Jesus Christ in reduction equals 43. And look at what time they say Tupac died at. He was pronounced dead at 4:03 p.m. Tupac was born in East Harlem, New York, which sums to 93 in reverse reduction. If you measure from the date of Tupac's death to the date of what would have been his next birthday, you see it was 9 months and 3 days. Tupac was born in the year 71. If you add up the dates in his birth date, 6 plus 16 plus 71, it sums to 93. September 13th, the date on which Tupac died, because it was 1996, a leap year, this was the 257th day of the year. And this is another significant number. Blood sacrifice, using the reverse order, sums to 257. And a lot of people think that Jesus died during a total solar eclipse. In the reverse order, this also sums to 257. In a method called Jewish gematria, this is based on the ancient Latin alphabetic order. You'll see that the letters that weren't added until the English alphabet came into existence are at the end. Using this method, Killuminati sums to 448. And this stands out for a few reasons. There's another method of extended gematria called English extended. And while Jewish is built on the Latin alphabetic order, English extended uses the modern alphabet, A through Z. The word devil sums to 448 in English extended. So does the phrase eclipse sacrifice, which is what they say Jesus might have been. Also notice this 290 in the reverse alphabetic order. The word Christ has Jewish gematria of 290. And later we're going to look at the death of Biggie Smalls. Biggie Smalls sums to 290 in Jewish gematria. His real name was Christopher Wallace, which sums to 290 in the reverse order. And think about it, he's got the Christ right there in his name. And wouldn't you know, Biggie Smalls died on the date of a total solar eclipse that occurred on March 9th, 1997. You'll see it was the only total solar eclipse to occur that year, there on March 9th. Ancient accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry also sums to 448. So at the high levels of Masonry, again, it's curious what those people are up to. The word Masonic, using the standard alphabetical order, has a gematria of 74. This matches the ordinal gematria of Jesus, he died on a cross, the words gospel and Messiah all summing to 74. In fact, Jesus Christ in the reverse reduction method also sums to 74. The word rapper equals 74. And here we're talking about the deaths of Tupac, which sums to 74 in the reverse order. He also went by the name Machiavelli. Machiavelli equals 74 alphabetic order. And Biggie Smalls. Biggie Smalls equals 74 reverse reduction. And there's another method of reduction gematria that we'll look at called single reduction. Since S is the 19th letter of the alphabet, 1 plus 9 equals 10. Full reduction will reduce that one more step. 1 plus 0 equals 1. However, single reduction only reduces it once. 1 plus 9 equals 10. So in this method, any S will be listed as 10, whereas in reduction, it's 1. And notorious BIG also summing to 74 this way. 74 also the gematria of the word killing. And see this 115 in the reverse order? Biggie Smalls equals 115 alphabetic order. Now back to the number 74. If you measure from the date of the release of Ready to Die, which was Biggie's first and final album before he died, to the date of the release of All Eyes on Me, which was Tupac's last album before he died, it was exactly 74 weeks apart. In fact, All Eyes on Me was released 7 months and 4 weeks exactly after Tupac's birthday. His debut album, Tupacalypse Now, was released 7 months and 4 days before his next birthday. And finally, Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory, came out 7 weeks and 4 days after he died. This also ties in to Biggie's death. The notorious B.I.G. died a span of 74 days before his birthday, including the end date. Another number that's commonly coded into death and sacrifice rituals is the number 38. The words death, murder, killing, R.I.P., among some others, all have this gematria of 38, using these standard 4-base ciphers. Both Tupac and Biggie died on dates that sum to 38 when you add all the individual digits together. These two albums that Tupac released, the one before his death and then the one after, All Eyes on Me and Don Illuminati, were released exactly 38 weeks apart. So before we saw that Biggie died 74 days before his birthday, this is also a span of 2 months and 13 days. 213 is a number heavily coded into racial propaganda. Tupac and Biggie were both killed in what's called a drive-by shooting. In the reverse order, this sums to 213. And you can see this right here on Wikipedia. Cause of death, drive-by shooting. There it is for Tupac. There it is for Biggie as well. Now, it just so happens that I'm recording this in February, which is Black History Month. That sums to 213. Tupac's parents were both members of the Black Panther Party. In fact, just before Tupac was born, his mom was found innocent as part of this Panther 21 trial back in 1971. The word racism, also in Jewish gematria, summing to 213. Tupac was born in East Harlem, New York. This sums to 213 using the alphabetic order. His final album before he died was released on the date, February 13th, written here in the States as 2/13. And if you measure from 2/13/96 to the date that Tupac died, you'll find it was 213 days. Now the date written 2/13, February 13th, the date that Tupac released his final album before he died, that's the 44th day of the year. The word kill, using the alphabetic order, equals 44. And in Hebrew, the word for to kill sums to 244. February 13th, this is also the beginning of Lupercalia, which is a festival celebrated by sacrifice. Lupercalia has a reduction value of 44. The 44th prime number, as I will show you, is 193. If you write out Tupac Shakur's full name, it sums to 193 using the alphabetic order. And if you drop his middle name and take a look at English extended, it sums to 1093. In numerology, these zeros are ignored, so this reflects virtually the same number. And this syncs up with the date that he died. If you actually write out September 13th, 1996, it sums to 193 using the reverse alphabetic order. If you measure from the date that All Eyes on Me came out to the date of his birthday, that year, it was 4 months and 4 days, including the end date. Notorious B.I.G.'s first posthumous album, Life After Death, came out 44 weeks after his final birthday. And this measures up perfectly. It came out also 193 days after Tupac died. Again, 193, the 44th prime number. Now, what if we measure between both of their posthumous albums, Don Illuminati to Life After Death? You find it's 4 months and 4 days. This ritual could not be scripted much better. Tupac was shot on the date September 7th, which is written 9/7 or 7/9. The word death sums to 97 using the reverse alphabetic order. The word murder in the standard order sums to 79. And something else that I find interesting, if you write out eclipse sacrifice, it sums to 79 reduction and 97 single reduction. This is the same as the Synagogue of Satan, 79 and 97. Synagogue of Satan, you'll see, also has this 290 that we've been talking about. And we'll see this towards the end of the video as well. The word murder also has a reverse value of 83. When you write out the date he was shot, September 7th, that sums to 83. And in the same method, Las Vegas, Nevada, sums to 83. In the standard reduction method, murder sums to 34. Tupac and Biggie were born exactly 340 days apart from one another. Their albums, the debut albums, even came out 34 months apart, separated only by a single day. The name Biggie Smalls, using the extended method, sums to 340. And when Don Killuminati was released, shortly after he died, Tupac would have been 304 months old. But instead, he died in the state of Nevada, which sums to 34. The word killing also sums to 43. And like we said before, he was pronounced dead at 4:03 p.m. The word Masonic also summing to 43, reverse reduction. Now we were looking at this 34 from the word murder. The 34th prime number is 139. When you write out Tupac Shakur, his name sums to 139 using the alphabetic order. And think again about the date he died, September 13th. That's written in most parts of the world as 13/9. And look at when Biggie's first album dropped. It came out on September 13th, 1994, the same date Tupac would later die at. And again, this all ties back to Freemasonry. Freemasonry sums to 139 alphabetic order. It's the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry that's headquartered in Washington, D.C., that runs our government, that runs our media, and all of our entertainment. Using the alphabetic order, this sums to 325. The album that came out shortly after Biggie died was called Life After Death. That was released on the date March 25th, written 3/25. The word masonry, using the reverse reduction method, sums to 39. It was on the date March 9th, or 3/9, that Biggie died. And when you write out Biggie, it sums to 39, reduction, ordinal, and in the Jewish method, because it's only using letters A through I. This was also the same date as a total solar eclipse. Eclipse sums to 39. Also note this 33, again like the gematria of masonry. The date that he died came exactly 390 days after Tupac's last album before he died came out. Now the 39th prime number is 167, and Tupac was born on the date June 16th. June 16th is written 616. Ritual sacrifice sums to 616 in Jewish gematria. The name Machiavelli, using the reverse order, sums to 142. Biggie was born on the 142nd day of the year, on May 21st of a leap year in 72. This Don Killuminati album, this came out 142 days after Tupac's last birthday. 142 is a number that's also stamped into racial propaganda in a negative way. And I believe the reason that is because the N-word here sums to 42 using the reduction method. And when you write out 42, it equals 142. And when you look at the reverse gematria of this word, it's 102. Slavery equals 102 in the alphabetic order. It's frequently said that this East Coast-West Coast rivalry stems from a diss track that Tupac released called Hit 'Em Up. That track came out exactly 102 days before Tupac died. Something else I want to share that's really interesting about his death, though, is that he died on September 13th, which in 1996 fell on the same day as Rosh Hashanah on the Jewish calendar. Rosh Hashanah, using the reduction method, sums to 57. This is the same gematria as moon, 57, and the Jews use the moon for their calendar, 57. The moon also ranges 57 degrees in the sky. So it's interesting because this was the year 5757 on the Jewish calendar. And again, Rosh Hashanah sums to 57 in reduction. Now, anytime there's a new month on the Jewish calendar, there's also a new moon. The two coincide with one another. The new moon that was occurring, the date that Tupac died, was in Virgo. Virgo new moon sums to 1331 using the English extended method. 1331 is a number I cannot overstate the significance of. It's very central to gematria, especially Jewish gematria. But it really brings this whole language together in ways that it's hard to describe. I'll link to this post below that talks about the 1331 total solar eclipse that occurred on November 30th. November 30th sums to 1331, just like 1331 eclipse. Tupac was born on a date with 103 and 31 numerology, a lot like 1331. This album, All Eyes on Me, that came out before he died, that was released on a date with 130 and 31 numerology, again like 13 and 31. Finally, the Don Columinati album, that came out on a date with 131 numerology, also a 31, and it came out on the 310th day of the year. The 13th prime is 41. This date had a life lesson number of 41. And when you write out the number 393, it sums to 1331. 393 is the gematria of Anita Sideris, which is the Greek word for the Metonic cycle. This is the ultimate measurement of time along with the Saros cycle. And Tupac, on the date that he died, he was 39 weeks, 3 days before his next birthday. Something else that's interesting about the Jewish New Year that year, 5757 in gematria in a cipher called Frank Baconis, which takes capital letters into account. 523 is the 99th prime number, and this number kept popping up in all sorts of date durations. Tupac's first album came out on his 9,009th day alive. Biggie died on the 909th day after his first album was released. All Eyes on Me was released 99 days before Biggie's birthday, his last birthday, and then Biggie died 99 days before what would have been Tupac's birthday. And I don't think these are coincidences. 99 is a number that's tied into 666, because if you add 6 plus 6 plus 6, you get 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. And it's the same thing with 99. 9 plus 9 equals 18. So earlier we looked at this 290. In Hebrew, total solar eclipse equals 290. And again, both Biggie Smalls in Jewish gematria and his real name, Christopher Wallace, 290 in the reverse method. With Jewish gematria, you can also drop this to an ordinal base. So instead of extending the numbers out, you just number them 1 through 27. And see how Christopher Wallace equals 192 using this method. That's the Jewish gematria of the word eclipse, 192. Another method that I touched on earlier was single reduction. Christopher Wallace sums to 97 in this method, and it was the 1997 total solar eclipse that occurred the date that he died. Here's a little glance at that eclipse. It was one in the far northern hemisphere that took place in Russia. When you write out eclipse of the sun using the alphabetic order, it sums to 177. In something called the English Kabbalah, where every 11th letter is used, total eclipse also equals 177. So it's kind of doubly significant. And Biggie's death came exactly 177 days after Tupac. I have this 314 listed here. Well, what I want you to notice about that is the Notorious B.I.G.'s full name. In Jewish ordinal, his name sums to 314, just like the satanic gematria of eclipse. Furthermore, solar eclipse equals 209 in the Hebrew language. Biggie Smalls equals 209 in the reverse alphabetic order. In ordinal, his name sums to 115. Remember, Don Illuminati came out on 11/5? It was the state of Nevada where Tupac died. That sums to 115. With all reverse reduction exceptions, total eclipse also has this value of 115. But this is a number that's also associated with Freemasonry. Freemasons sums to 115. And the word Masonic, using the reverse order, sums to 115. So that'll conclude this video. I hope that what I showed you is enough evidence to prove that this whole East Coast, West Coast rivalry was just a scripted stage show played out in what we call reality. It would be one thing if they were just trying to make a few bucks, but the fact that they're actively trying to demolish our society and pit us against one another is what's really sickening. Thanks for watching. God bless.